net. Tipped over by Dickinson, and a good effort from Sydney van der Hoof. Getting us started and not wasting any time in kicking things off with an early shot on target in just the first minute of the game. So the early corner for Guelph as they look to take an early advantage. And again, this one just about fended off by Dickinson in the Pro Stars net. Dickinson, an international for St. Kitts and Nevis, so she certainly comes with a great deal of experience and ability. Well, playing this one short, swinging that in, changing the angle. Plenty of options. The red shirts were lining up, but nobody quite able to get a foot on that and turn it in. A quick note on our officiating staff today. The referee is indeed John O'Hara. The assistant referees, Josue Tomas Cascales and Korab Islami. And then our fourth official is Sean McBride. I'd just like to take a moment right at the top of the broadcast here and say that today's League One Ontario broadcast is made possible by the support of its partners, including Gatorade, Rehydrate, Replenish, Refuel, Derby Stars, the official ball of the Canadian Premier League and the preferred match ball for League One Ontario, as we have a bit of a scuffle down at the left back position for Guelph Union, but the ball has worked free and actually popped over into a very dangerous position for Guelph to latch onto. Kate Nalthak had gotten herself into a good situation. The Pro Stars defense was caught out by the diagonal pass, but the shot was perhaps a little rushed. She had maybe more time than she had initially expected. Pro Stars looking to build through the lines. It's Clark Jolly looking for help around her, making sure to keep the ball. But that crossfield diagonal neatly read and cut out. Hodgson now looking up. You can see the fullbacks for Guelph staying very, very wide when they are in possession. Danielle Sauvé with getting the proverbial chalk on her boots, providing the width in the build-up for Guelph. Here is Sauvé surveying her options. Hodgson keeps that one moving. And not a bad ball down the line from Burke. She has been noted as someone who can play the ball and will look to break the lines and create those transitions. This time the ball just drifting out of play. Pro Stars getting us started again. Neatly inside for Rugole, but not quite able to bring that one in. Oh, Sauvé's pass a touch short, but well read by Sia Chumba. To continue with our sponsorship role, Macron, work hard, play harder. A vibrant performance is Canada's most trusted automotive brand. As Olivia Brown was clear on goal, thought she had all the time in the world, but the retreating Celine Sultana made sure that nothing came of that. Oh, my apologies. Sofia Kuzmeski. It was good work to get back, but that's twice now that Pro Stars have already, in the first 6 minutes, been undone by an angled ball over the top. played in from deep. Either that line will have to be adjusted or they're going to have to be a little bit more aware, stop those balls coming in. Rugoli now running at Hodgson, doing very, very well to just kind of breeze past the defender and look to play that one in, but there was only one white shirt in support. She didn't really have a lot of options. Just during this break, continue with our sponsorship. Sports Engine is bring your team together with Sports Engine HQ, the Canadian Premier League, where Canadian soccer takes flight, Ontario Soccer, encouraging us all to play, inspire, and unite, and Canada Soccer. Sign up now for the new Canada Red fan membership program to get the inside track on national team tickets, exclusive merchandise, and other promotions. So, with the a large chunk of the admin out of the way, we can now settle in and focus on this game. Into the 8th minute, a few chances for Guelph already. As mentioned, the angled balls over the top seemed promising avenues forward, and we did have Sydney van der Hoeve with a testing shot on target in the first minute. Nothing coming from the resulting corners. Dealt with well by Kyra Dickinson in the Pro Stars net. That bouncing ball not really dealt with very well, and Briscoe is through, but her shot not really having the venom that it would have needed to take it past the Dickinson in the Pro Stars net. But a chance born of a typical Briscoe chance born of tenacity and not giving up on a loose ball in the opposing third. Oh, that's a good work from Mary Young to keep that ball moving, but Briscoe is there to sweep up, make sure there's no counter-attack or transition the other way. Pro Stars look to have settled into a, certainly when defending with a 5 across the back, a shape with, a back line of 5. Whether that'll be maintained as they move forward, as it looks like the wing back or full back on the far side from us, their right-hand flank, certainly is a little bit more adventurous with her positioning than Chumba on the near side or their left-hand flank. That is solid defensive work though, and Hodgson meeting the ball well, but good work from Chumba right up the line for Rugoli to track. Clark Jolly just about able to get to it, but hacked free by AC Lang. And then Olivia Brown does very nicely to release Mary Young down the left-hand line. That ball kept in, and Young is behind the defense. A testing ball. But again, no real red shirts to aim at. She had done terrifically to get around the back of her defensive counterpart. And the ball on from Brown was really inch perfect and weighted beautifully. Brown looking pretty comfortable with playing with her back to goal, which I'm sure is something that Guelph are aware of and will look to capitalize on. I'm sure she'll have her two wingers, Young and Naffolk, running on from her, and particularly Cassandra Briscoe will be looking to move into the space that she will create with her actions. As mentioned, it is a hot and sultry early July day. There is a breeze, however, so... Oh, and a wicked corner coming in that Dickinson had to be aware of and had to watch the entire way. As mentioned, the breeze perhaps helping that one. You can see with the corner flags that they are blowing from left to right at present. So perhaps playing a part in the trajectory of that corner as it was played in. Van der Hoof lining up from the opposite side now. Looking for movement in the box. Oh, and that one nearly falling right onto the head of Hodgson. But sent wide. No doubt, I'm sure, much to the relief of the Pro Stars coaching staff. And team on the field, of course. Sharp work by Fowler to make sure that that one is dug out and released. She was looking to release Rugole, but the ball was well read by Hodgson. Burke finding Young in acres of space. Oh, and the on-rushing Sauvé doing very, very well. Cut back it beautifully for Brown. And you have to say that's a missed opportunity. The work down the Guelph left-hand side was excellently done. Young finding the run of her supporting fullback unerringly, and then the cutback to Olivia Brown, who looked like she had all the time in the world. But unfortunately for Guelph, sending her shot right at the feet of Kyra Dickinson in the Pro Stars net. This has been a familiar tale in the early goings of the game, whereby Guelph have been able to fashion one or two good-looking opportunities, but thus far not able to beat Dickinson. Sauvé makes sure that ball down the line doesn't find its intended recipient. Chumba looking for options, finds Rugole, who turns very, very neatly. She looks like a real bright spark. And certainly it seems like with the ball at her feet, Pro Stars always have an opportunity and the potential for something to happen. Starcevic with another marauding run on that left-hand side, playing that angled ball in, looking for the run of Brown, or indeed Nafelk. Either would have worked. Both were tracking the angle of the ball. Fowler just about bringing this one in, under the attentions of Nafelk, finding Chumba. Arsenault doing well to keep hold of the ball. Chumba looking for Clark Jolly, but Van der Hoof there to cut that out. Regain possession for Guelph as they look to build again. Briscoe turning, twisting, doing very nicely to find herself some time against Celine Sultana, but the ball in slightly lacking this time. Well, Nafelk making sure, fighting for that one. and hoping for a corner, for the assistant referee deciding otherwise, giving a goal kick. Oh, that was a good attempt to get that ball moving quickly from Sarah van der Laan, but the pass was a little bit off. But the idea was right, to kind of step into a loose ball and immediately try and break the lines, create the transition for Rugole to perhaps isolate a defender or get a one-on-one opportunity. Now, being 50 yards from goal with the ball at your feet is there's still a lot of work to do. But that does seem like it may be ProStar's plan at present. Particularly with how comfortable and happy Guelph seem to be when they are in possession to move their two central defenders. You can see, well, they're shifting a little, so when in possession, Hodgson will move up into the space a little bit, as indeed she's doing now. And the fullback on the weak side, so where the ball is not, will kind of tuck in and tuck across before exploding outwards once they regain possession, as Starcevic has done just now. Oh, perhaps Starcevic now getting caught out by Celine Sultana, who looked to square that ball for Rugole, but just ahead of her attacking partner. But these quick breaks might be where ProStars can capitalize and create some attacking opportunities and perhaps test Christina Alexander in the Guelph net. Oh, that ball being allowed to bounce, I'm sure, is not something anybody is particularly happy about. Briscoe able to spread the play for the onrushing Sauvé, who has the time to look up and survey her options, finds Nafolk, who finds Briscoe, who's looking for that neat little inside pass for Brown to run onto. On a long one now. Again, Dickinson able to scoop that effort up from Van der Hoeve, whose earlier attempt was a little bit more dangerous. As mentioned, 19 minutes in, and Christina Alexander yet to be tested in the Guelph net. Another point perhaps worthy of note is that ProStars have only travelled with 2 substitutes with a short bench. So their fatigue levels may be something that's worth keeping an eye on towards the end of the game, particularly if they... Oh, that is a very, very loose pass at the back from Hodgson that was looking to be pounced on by Arsenault for ProStars, but as mentioned, the previously untested Alexander was alive to the threat and quickly out. It was Reese Fowler, actually, my apologies, who was chasing that ball, was alive to the possibilities of a loose pass. I'm sure Hodgson will not want to repeat that, and I'm sure Alexander would like it even less. But admirable work from the Guelph Union goalkeeper to be switched on enough and able to snuff out any danger or certainly put an end to the opportunity early before a shot is able to be taken. Van der Hoeve now dropping back in between her 2 centre-backs, allowing Burke a little bit more space to move up. Young tucking inside, Starcevic able to overlap. Oh, and a wonderful ball for Brown to run onto, just a little bit heavy, and actually our assistant referee had decreed that Brown would have been offside anyhow, I believe. But that's good movement and rotation from the Guelph Union team to make the space. Ooh, what a lovely wee turn from Arsenault back inside for Fowler, who has options if she wants them. Clark Joly. She could have moved that one more, but instead choosing to progress with the ball at her feet. A slight miscommunication there between Starcevic and Young. No hard feelings. Young perhaps expecting somebody to have been running that channel ahead of her. Fowler doing well to dig that ball out for Clog-Jolie to get at her feet. She looked for Rugoli, the ball making its way through the Guelph Union backline, but not in a dangerous way. Certainly not to the feet of a Pro Stars player. AC Lang now also able to drop in. It seems that we'll, in numbers terms, that Guelph perhaps playing something close to a 4-2-3-1 with AC Lang and Van der Hoeve as the two holding midfielders, but Cassandra Briscoe nominally an attacking midfielder, but certainly more than happy dropping deep. As we've already seen, Young perfectly happy to kind of drift inside from that left-hand side as well. Perhaps coming into Briscoe's space, but when Briscoe's dropping deep, the space needs to be occupied by another red shirt anyway, so. Clog-Jolie doing nicely to find Sultana. Pro Stars thus far not quite able to get their passing networks together, as we are able to take a quick break for some hydration. As I have mentioned, it is hot out today. It is sunny. These players are unshaded on this field, and so it is not a surprise to me in the slightest that a hydration break was in order. And perhaps a good time to mention again our sponsor, Gatorade. Rehydrate, replenish, refuel. So thus far the pattern of the game really seems to be that Guelph happy possessing the ball, happy moving the ball, trying to create opportunities down each flank. They look to me like they're getting more joy down their left-hand side, that's the far side from us, with the overlapping Starcevic, including one very, very good cutback for Brown, which was a terrific opportunity that really you would have expected the top scorer of the team to slot away without any kind of issue. The other shot was within the first minute from Sydney van der Hoeve, who certainly had, I'm sure, Dickinson in the Pro Stars net sweating a little bit there, but she was able to watch it all the way and tip it over. Pro Stars, on the other hand, haven't really been able to build what you would consider regular patterns of attack as they get us restarted here. But I will say that it looks like they've had some joy down the left-hand side. As Briscoe does very, very nicely, very busy in the middle of the field, able to spread that ball for Sauvé. Brings it inside for Lang, who finds Van der Hoeve. Brown able to get that ball, able to turn. Looks to play Young, who does terrifically to keep that ball alive, but just drifting out over the touchline, over the byline there. Young had done well to battle and take that ball away from Celine Sultana, who was looking to clear it. But in her attentions had just knocked the ball over the byline. Clog-Jolie in the Pro Stars midfield, I will say, looks when she has the ball at her feet, she looks very, very assured. And so perhaps that's something that Pro Stars could look to capitalize on, but there again, maybe she could occasionally be guilty of not moving the ball quickly enough, particularly if Pro Stars are looking to build those quick transitions. As she presses Jasmine Burke now. Van der Hoeve looking to thread that one through for Brown to chase down, but not quite. And Briscoe, tenacious as ever. Lang looking to spread that one, but the ball slightly misplayed for Arsenault, who's trying to get that one down the channel for Rugole to chase, but Hodgson was more than alive to it. Lang now with another chance. Oh, and that's a great ball through, but just running a little bit long. You have to say perhaps the touch from Sofia Kozmevsky was enough to deviate the flight just slightly away from Olivia Brown and her run into the welcoming arms of Kyra Dickinson. Van der Laan striding forward at the ball, coming over the halfway line, looking for her options. Good work to advance that ball for ProStar. See if they could finally gain a presence in the attacking third. Kate Nafelk looking to beat Sia Chumba, but the ProStar defender coming back very, very nicely. She looked like she was beaten, but she didn't give up. Stayed with it and gave away only a throw-in for her travails. Oh, a neat turn by Briscoe. Really good work by Cassandra Briscoe. But I will say that Leia Pearson, who was initially beaten on the turn, again, similarly did not give up and was able to come back and put the challenge in. Starcevic now looking up, trying to find a route forward, but unable to keep the ball in under the attentions of Sultana. Worth bearing in mind that actually for both of these teams, this is their first season in the Women's Premier Division for some time, or at all indeed. Guelph, our home team, did play in the summer tournament last year, actually going 6-0, completely undefeated, winning all 6 of their games and coming out ahead in the 2021 summer tournament. ProStars, on the other hand, a team that did initially play several years ago at the inaugural, and as you see, Clark Jolie just dancing away from the attentions of the Guelph Union midfielders. The ball for Fowler just a touch too long for Sultana, but you could see the idea. But yes, as mentioned, ProStars did play in the inaugural season of 2015 before a hiatus of sorts, and a return in this season in 2022. As mentioned, they will be pushing for a win today, not only in an attempt to solidify their recent form, but also as an opportunity to actually go ahead of Hamilton if they get 3 points. They're only 1 point behind them at present. Oh, and that ball for Nafelk looked promising, but Chumba, who's been watchful and really not allowed anything down her flank, nothing really too dangerous, made sure that Nafelk didn't have a free run onto the pass. Good work for Pearson to run onto that ball, play the one over the top for Arsenault to chase. Sauvé will try and just watch that one go out. Arsenault did well to keep it in, but didn't really have the white shirts around her to support her play. Pearson, though, more than happy to accept the gift of a ball right up the middle. Clark Jolie lining one up, perhaps somewhat ambitiously, as that one does somewhat ignominiously go out for a throw-in. Not even making the byline. One would have to say that an attempt from 30 yards or so out was always going to be ambitious. And I think we have been proven correct in that hypothesis with the result of that attempt. Guelph Union now looking to just neatly move the ball up through the lines. Ooh, Chumbe looking straight up the field with a quick transition over the top for Rugole to chase. Now, as mentioned, if that is their plan, they are going to be running their forward into the ground. A thankless task for her this evening. I believe the term ploughing a lonely furrow certainly comes into effect here. So actually, here she is with the ball at her feet, just snuck away from her by AC Lang. And Fowler there in the 33rd minute with Pro Stars' first shot on net. But you have to say, Pro Stars in the last 5-10 minutes so slowly clawing their way back into this game. Guelph Union relenting ever so slightly, just a little bit of control of the game, going back, swinging back the other way as Clark, Jolly, Fowler, Pearson in the Pro Stars midfield able to start getting their foot on the ball. It's really gamely battles and scraps for any kind of inch or yard that she can gain. Being awarded a free kick for her work this time around. The ball swung in towards the back post, and Arsenault was hunting. She was lurking with intent, but Alexander in the Guelph Union net was awake and alive and plucked the ball out of it. It's a great ball for Briscoe to chase, but well read by Van der Laan. With again it was a nicely weighted ball in behind the Guelph Union defense. It was dropped into that space where they did have to do something about it. The ball perhaps holding up in the turf a touch, not skidding through to the goalkeeper. And Hodgson again with her second slightly loose touch of the game. Maybe just slightly under hitting a pass, and Ruguli's eyes no doubt lighting up. And again, as she looked to take that one past, but Van der Hoef this time on hand to make sure that nothing untoward came of that. As mentioned, Pro Stars growing into the game, looking like they might be growing in confidence, getting to balls a little bit more often, not letting things bounce in their own end. Oh, Nafok with a very lovely little knock past Van der Laan though. And a decent centering ball for Brown. Initially cut out but not cleared by Pro Stars as Briscoe looks to fight her way through. Eventually hacked clear by the massed ranks of the Pro Stars defense, but the ball looped back over, finding its way at the feet of Nafok. And Chumba, who, as mentioned, has been very defensively solid at the Pro Stars left back position, is able to get that one clear, or certainly remove any opportunity or threat. Ten minutes or so left in this first half. Guelph Union starting strong, but Pro Stars coming into the game a little bit as we've moved on. Having said that, certainly not looking like they are never posing a threat as Starcevic and Burke combine on that left-hand flank, which was certainly in the early knockings of the game an avenue that was bearing fruit for them. Oh, Van der Hoef with a really, really nicely weighted ball for Starcevic, slicing right across the front of the Pro Stars defense, but Starcevic had done well to get the ball and herself past Sultana, but there was just a little bit too much weight on her knock past. But you have to say that the ball from Sydney Van der Hoef was really the thing that was worth mentioning there. Finding the gap and finding that angle very, very nicely indeed. Briscoe looking for the run of Nafelk, but assistant referee Cascales has decided that that was indeed offside, that Nafelk had gone before the ball. Missed a chance to cut that one out. I'm sure Van der Hoef is happy that nothing had come of that. She did look like she had been bamboozled slightly by the bounce. Chumba dropping that one very, very nicely for Rugoli to retreat onto. But Starcevic cuts that one out actually very, very well too. Making sure Sultana can't get anywhere with it. Young now with the ball at her feet, dancing, jinking. And the pass eventually able to find its way out to Starcevic, who plays in brown. Her cross though just behind her forward partner. But for her to be given the time and the space to turn like that, I'm sure will be a moment of mild concern for Pro Stars. Fowler and Lang battling away. And Chumba just with nowhere to go. Nafelk now looking to twist and turn her way into some space, get across into the box. And actually the clearance just deflecting off her for a Pro Stars throw. Chumba's clearance for Rugule to chase. Also just drifting out of bounds as we get a wee bit bogged down on this near side. Burke now will, I'm sure, look to open the game up, find the space. Starcevic's ball darting in. Not showing enough guile. As Briscoe is always moving, always looking to find space. Given the license to roam around a little bit in that midfield, across laterally, certainly across the zones, to always be an option for any kind of forward pass from her backline. Survey for Nafelk, for the aforementioned Briscoe, whose ball in doesn't get any further than Van der Laan. Briscoe, however, takes that one back from Arsenault. Then Chumba does very, very well to make that ground up. Briscoe, I'm sure, thought she was beyond the defender. Was weighing up her options for the pass, but Chumba able to come back in at the last second with a tackle to give up only a corner for now, which Sydney Van der Hoef will take for us. That one's floated in, and Hodgson and Brown always options. Ooh, and that one falling nicely for Sauvé, who must have seen her name on the back pages of tomorrow's paper. sitting up like that, well, I don't think you can call yourself a footballer in general if your eyes don't light up when the ball sits up and asks to be volleyed like that. Clogshaw doing very, very well to turn away from AC Lang, beautifully backing into the defender. And Arsenault's control falling to Fowler. Arsenault looking for the continued run of Fowler, who just can't get wrap her left foot around the cross. A lung-busting run from Fowler to continue on down that left side. Linking up nicely with Annika Arsenault. But on this occasion, nothing really coming. Briscoe somehow able to wriggle through 3 or 4 challenges there. But ProStar's just about able to get that one clear. And again, Starchevic's attempt to maraud down that left-hand flank just slightly over long. Pearson with the time to turn, time to launch the ball up the line. But Sultana, the nominal right winger, several yards behind the play. So once more, Guelph will look to build from the back. Jasmine Burke able to advance with the ball at her feet, survey her options, and another one of those angled balls from those deep areas. We'd seen a couple of those early on in the half. Caused some real issues for the ProStars backline. So perhaps Guelph just going back to the well of something that they knew had worked well for them previously. Burke with the time to move forward, with the time to see what her options are, finds Cindy van der Hoof, who also, similarly, a lot of time in that space. Moving the ball very patiently, and AC Lang with looking to thread that one through, again for the onrushing Olivia Brown. The idea was very neat, the execution just slightly off, but you have to say that's an encouraging sign. If that Guelph were able to build that play so neatly and so calmly, with what I would think ProStars, on the ProStar side, was an alarming amount of space in those midfield positions, as Brugoli fights and scraps and battles, as she has been all half, for a throw in a dangerous area. She really is tireless in her pursuit of the ball. Pearson needs options, doesn't have them, so the ball goes right into the feet of Hodgson, whose clearance for Nafalk was very, very neatly done. And now Nafalk, what can she do here? What options does she got? Brown wants it. Ooh, and the ball just about evading the defender. Kozmevsky, who up until this point had been solid at the back, actually seemed to lose the flight of the pass there, giving Brown time to line her shot up, but not quite, again, able to best Kyra Dickinson in the ProStars net, and this one just being hacked clear for a corner, as we have had 1 minute of added time announced. So the dying moments of the first half, I'm sure Guelph would love to capitalize on this opportunity. Van der Hoof loops that one in. And that referee O'Hara does indeed call our first half to a close. So that is the end of our first half of Guelph Union and ProStars FC. It comes to a close at 0-0, but an enthralling, engaging game of football nonetheless. And We'll give you 15 minutes and be back for the second half. Don't go anywhere.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Weekly in-depth coverage of the most local stories in Stratford, Perth, Brantford, Brant, Guelph, Wellington, and the Waterloo region. Hyperlocal stories that matter to you and your community. All this and more on your region this week. All local, all year round. New episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. right here on Rogers TV.
I was born and raised in Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I'm from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
And he fell.
Whoa, I'm not driving. I'm way too stoned. How are you feeling, beer?
Oh, since we had that talk, I'm not driving tonight at all.
What about you, Dave?
You only had a couple of drinks.
And only a couple of puffs.
I don't drink and drive. No way I'm getting behind the wheel when I smoked weed, too.
How are we getting home, then?
Oh, you can drive, Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Take one for the team, buddy.
Don't let weed and alcohol influence your decision to drive.
Yeah, I need a ride.
My name is Chase Nicholas. I am a Mi'kmaq hockey player. Growing up, I always remember my family talking about the Mi'kmaq as the creators of the game of hockey. In grade 7, I did research on Mi'kmaq hockey sticks as the first sticks of the NHL. I found a Mi'kmaq hockey stick made in 1917, the same year the NHL was formed. I was surprised to find out the very stick I was holding was made by my great-great-grandfather, Alexander Cope. In 1934, an elder known as Old Joe Cope wrote a letter to the Halifax Herald claiming the Mi'kmaq created hockey. I found out later that I am a direct descendant of Old Joe Cope. There was a time when Mi'kmaq children were torn from their families and not allowed to speak their language, losing their words and stories. But the stories are coming back to us. Stepping on the ice, I take pride knowing the roots of the game of hockey stem from my ancestors in the Mi'kmaq Nation.
On the Art Trail with Joanne returns for season 2. We have a terrific lineup coming up for you. We will be interviewing folks like gallery owners, musicians, a theater impresario, a master Japanese calligrapher, and much more. So watch On the Art Trail with Joanne, Saturdays at 7.
Hello folks, and welcome back to the second half of our afternoon presentation of this League One Women's Premier Division Soccer. We've got Guelph Union, the host team, in red, playing now right to left against Pro Stars FC. In white, playing left to right. The score is tied at 0-0. There was a first half that was a little bit scruffy, but not without chances. As Olivia Brown is very early on, 20 seconds into the second half, is just flagged offside with that neat ball through. So the first half wasn't completely without chances, but perhaps I suppose a touch of quality missing at the telling moments of both teams. Guelph certainly with the better opportunities of the two teams, more than a couple of them actually falling at the feet of Olivia Brown, the rangy number 9 who you just seen caught offside. So we'll see how those patterns develop over the course of the second half and whether either one of these teams is able to make the breakthrough. There has been a change at half. Kate Naffolk has been replaced by Julie Khan. So that's actually over on the far side. Khan, number 10 there, slotting in at in the right wing position, just ahead of Sauvé on that far side. Hodgson finding the substitute now as she looks to turn past Van der Laan. Pro Stars no substitutes just yet. As mentioned, they do have a pretty short bench with them today, and as previously mentioned as well, it is a warm one out there, so we'll see if fatigue starts to play a role later on in the game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we were to have another hydration break, as Pro Stars not quite able to get that one free, but the ball for Briscoe wasn't a great one, but she was able to battle with Kozmevsky and make sure that she won the corner, able kind of really to turn nothing into something at that one. The ball through for her to chase was, I mean, yeah, slightly awry. You wouldn't have been pleased were you to play that pass. But here we are with Sydney van der Hoof to take the corner, and I'm sure Union would love to strike early in the second half rather. As Hodgson able to ghost in unmarked in between players. She'd been a target on previous corners as well, and you can see why. It's not just the heading ability but the movement as well, as she is able to dart in between her markers and meet the ball quite nicely with her forehead, this time just bouncing that one off the foot of the right hand post. A good effort and early notice for Pro Stars that they are still in this game, that there is still the danger of chances, as Briscoe steps very neatly away from challenge and looks to play in Young, who's drifted a long way in from her nominal position on the left-hand flank. But again, Sia Chumba, who I think I had highlighted throughout the first half as being a real defensive rock on that in that left-back position for Pro Stars, was alive to that position and was alive to that danger rather, and able to muscle out Young. Pro Stars now looking to get somewhere, looking to develop a platform, but the fight of Dana Rugoli is clearly still in her during the second half. She had been I suppose the lone forward for Pro Stars throughout that first half, and really showed that she was able to scrap with the best of them. She really did look like if the ball was at her feet, it was the most likely avenue for anything for Pro Stars, really, in terms of mounting regular attacks and creating opportunities. And we can see why. She's quick, she's fast and she is tenacious. Strong with the ball at her feet. Just hasn't, as of yet, been able to receive it in what would be considered a dangerous position. Briscoe and Khan linking now, but Chumba not allowing any further ingress down that flank. Then Khan's return ball for Sauvé. A touch loose. Just working her way, feeling her way into the game, I'm sure. Oh, a neat ball through for Brown to chase from Khan. So she actually took that one off the toes of Briscoe. Brown and Young combining very, very nicely now. Young really has nowhere to go, and you see that because she had been working with Brown on this in this left-hand channel. No red shirts had filled that spot that had been vacated by the number 9. And so when that ball was played in, it was put into a dangerous area and actually landed in between, in the middle of a ring of white shirts, but there was no red shirt to capitalize on that loose ball bouncing in the penalty area. Briscoe with a neat little ball over her head for Van der Hoof to run onto, but the Pro Stars defense alive to it and getting Rugoli into a foot race with Hodgson, which she wins terrifically now. She has no support and 3 defenders, and Burke does very, very well, stays on her feet, is patient, makes Rugoli commit, and just nips her tackle at the last minute. And so, as we've seen, Rugoli looks like the avenue or the forward that is going to provide the most serious threat for Pro Stars. Ably demonstrated there in her winning that foot race across 20-30 yards, a flat sprint across the ground against Alyssa Hodgson. But because she was so far ahead of the play, she really had no one in support and no one to help her. And Clark Jolly, who we had seen earlier in the first half, good with the ball at her feet, but this time just being edged out. But again, one must really applaud the defensive acumen and patience of Jasmine Burke in that most recent Pro Stars attack, as they come again now with Clark Jolly has options, looks to thread the ball through for Rugoli, but Hodgson gets the foot on it, gets it clear, but defender and attacker clashing, and I think inadvertently there was nothing malicious in that. Rugoli was just following the path of the ball, and Hodgson happened to be find herself there. Referee O'Hara similarly seeing no intent or malice in that coming together. Happy to get us restarted with a drop ball for Christina Alexander to take and get the ball rolling once more. Hodgson up quickly after the clash too, which is good to see. Van der Hoof allowed to get on the half turn, play in Burke, who can stride forward. Starcevic not letting this one go, still tracking that one down. But that's actually good work from Ongarato to not let the Guelph left back in behind her, and to just shepherd that one out. Young trying to settle this one into that space. Oh, and a neat ball across, and just not able to be turned in by Khan, but fell right into the path of the onrushing Olivia Brown, who finishes with absolutely zero mistake, slamming that one home in the 55th minute, making this a 1-0 game for Guelph Union. The work from Young was strong as usual on this left side to break in behind the Pro Stars defense. The ball across wasn't one of the best, but the ball fell very nicely, and or rather just sort of dropped into the path of Olivia Brown, who kept her run going, was you know, I think, and that's the sign of a good forward, is she doesn't stand and watch. She was chasing that ball at all times and really was able to just, it just dropped right in front of her, and she was able to just slam that one into the corner. And there was, from so close, there was nothing really Dickinson in the Pro Stars net could do about it. That's actually her 6th goal of the season. Again, taking her, extending her lead at a neat turn from Clark Joly as Pro Stars look to get right back into this one. Fowler with an effort from a wee bit far out to really threaten Alexander. But as mentioned, it's Olivia Brown's 6th of the season, extending her lead at the top of the Guelph Union scoring charts. An emphatic finish, I think, is how you'd really have to characterize that one. But that's a goal that I'm sure will settle Guelph Union down a little bit. Brown do very nicely to spread that play and find Briscoe, who is in a whole bunch of space. Looks to play that one over the top for Khan. Oh, not quite able to get away from the attentions of the Pro Stars defense. But Van der Hoeve this time able to pluck that one away from Clark Joly, and Young once again looking to play in Brown with a neat little reverse pass. The ball was good, but Brown may be caught on her heel slightly, perhaps expecting Young to take the shot. Left to be seen, of course, whether Brown would have been adjudged to have been offside on that pass. But the idea was a very, very neat one. And Young, you can see as she drifts in from the flank and allows Starcevic to take up that very, very wide position. Looks like she's enjoying herself with the ball at her feet and able to kind of run at the Pro Stars defense and pick holes in that line. Hodgson's pass back for Alexander, this time with more than enough on it, but a missed clearance there for Van der Laan as Brown is able to get onto this ball. Get away from Kosmevsky, and the pass over the top. Not a great one, but still finding its way to the feet of Starcevic, who turns and twists and looks to get away from Sultana, but the Pro Stars white player not giving up on that one, making Starcevic work for it. So in the first half, Van der Hoeve did actually test Dickinson in the Pro Stars net directly from a corner. She had the wind with her at that point. So it seems unlikely that we'll get another attempt of an Olympico this time around, but that ball is in, and this time gratefully claimed by Dickinson. The corner really lacking the legs to find its way into the danger area this time around. A long clearance out from Dickinson, not finding anybody, and neatly and gratefully swept up by Sauvé. As Young and Nestle, this time Jasmine Burke, the overlapping centre back, able to take some territory and line up a ball in. That one drifting over very, very nicely for Cassandra Briscoe, who plays that one in, and they were lining up. And the attempt from Khan was on target. Brown was actually right behind her. The 2 red shirts were in a queue to take a shot, but the attempt on target, and I have to say the save from Dickinson, incredible. Wonderful reactions to tip that one just over the bar. You saw actually the ball came back in play as it actually came off the yellow football bar before bouncing its way back into the soccer net. As Van der Hoeve. Oh, and that one isn't kept out. We'd seen previously in this half already that Guelph were mounting a threat in their set pieces. Alyssa Hodgson had previously rattled the header off the bottom post. This time, Brown climbed highest, towered above her markers, and knotted that one home. Dickinson doing all that she could, but not quite able to claw that ball free as it nestled into the bottom right corner. That's her second in the game in the 60th minute. And her 7th on the season. Olivia Brown now having herself a game. 2-2, making it 2-0 to Guelph Union. As actually on the back of that, well, probably unaffected by that goal, we do actually have a change as well for Guelph Union, as Abby Morell is brought into the game in the 60th minute in replacement for Marie Young. And so 2-0 now, Guelph Union, to Pro Stars in their 0. And both of them coming from Olivia Brown. Well, one with her right foot, one with her head. I'm sure she'd love to get the to complete the hat trick with a left-footed finish. And Guelph suddenly looking like they're in a much more comfortable position. It was the first half finishing 0-0. I'm sure there was still some nerves. The game could still have been in the balance, and actually Pro Stars already this half, when before Guelph Union had scored their first goal, as we saw, creating opportunities for themselves with particularly through Dana Rugole, but 2 goals to the good now, and I'm sure Guelph able to breathe a little bit easier and see out the remaining 30 minutes or so of this game. But of course, they must make sure they don't get complacent. Burke looking for options. Decides to take Starcevic. Vanderhoef with a nice ball over for Morell to chase and beat out Sultana. A nice turn back inside as well. Morell's got options. Oh, and that one is just over the bar. Had Dickinson scrambling. Ambiguous, I suppose, as to whether it was meant to be a cross towards the back post or an attempt on goal, but certainly close enough to have the Pro Stars goalkeeper's heart in her mouth. As we have another sub, Vanessa Mazur replacing in the 63rd minute our brace scorer Olivia Brown. So no hat trick for Brown today, but I'm sure she'll be perfectly happy with the work that she has gotten through, scoring 2 and certainly putting Guelph Union in a strong position for the rest of this game. Vanderhoef has really done a good job of marshalling that central defensive area, central midfield area rather. Done well to not let anything untoward come to pass. Certainly not stemming from those areas, as Abby Morell shows those fresh legs against the tired defense of Pro Stars. Getting another corner. So as you've seen, we've had the post hit from a corner, we've had a goal from a corner. So let's see what we can see here. Let's see what Sydney Vanderhoef can conjure up for Guelph. That ball was in, but flicked clear by Sarah van der Laan, giving up nothing more than a throw-in. Danielle Sauvé will trot across to take it for us. Survey looking to keep hold of that one. AC Lang does well to move away from the attentions of Rugole, and Guelph keep that ball moving. Starcevic now tries to find Mazur. Pearson just moving away from the attentions, but Rugole now able to capitalize on Hodgson coming over the ball. But Sultana's ball back inside for Clockjolly just evades the midfielder. Morell looks to bring that one across, but and eventually it finds its way to Briscoe. You gotta say that's good work from Khan, who had managed to poke the loose ball through from Mazur, and then the really nice unselfish play from Mazur to roll that ball into the path of Cassandra Briscoe, who really you would have expected to do better with that shot. Rattling it off the shins of Dickinson. That's a lovely touch from Sauvé. And oh no, that is an unfortunate deflection, and not one that really I think the Pro Stars defense deserve. It was great work from Sauvé to get herself into that position and put in a dangerous cross, and just had the Pro Stars defense facing their own goal, which is always is never a position a defensive line wants to be in. And the third is unfortunately an own goal that
Guelph Union goal credited to number 3, Danny Sauvé, the 66th minute.
And it extends the lead for Guelph Union over Pro Stars now, 3-0 after that own goal. And again, that's not something that I think Pro Stars really deserve. They had they defended gamely, and actually I think they had made Guelph work for their goals. They hadn't really gifted them anything. And then for that goal, for the ultimate gift to be preferred, I think is a slightly unfair reflection of their day's work thus far. Jasmine Burke now. Starcevic cutting inside, looking deep. Can't get that one, but Briscoe finds herself with all kinds of time and space, and Mazur must really be secretly pleased to have seen the offside flag raised there, as she really should have done better with that. The ball from Briscoe had found its way to her feet. And you have to say that all of this space now opening up at the back line, this must be indicative perhaps of the legs and the draining energy of the Pro Stars. As Mads mentioned, it is a hot, sunny day out here today. This would not be a particularly enjoyable, even with the breeze, it would be a hard, draining conditions to play in. And so these pockets of space are opening up more and more. On that most recent Guelph attack, Briscoe had the freedom of the park really to pick her spot and play a very, very dangerous ball in that, as mentioned, Mazur should have done perhaps a little bit better with, but as she was flagged offside, perhaps her blush is saved there. And there indeed is our hydration break in the 69th minute. So around 20 minutes or so left in this game, with Guelph Union currently being 3-0 over Pro Stars FC. In our afternoon matinee presentation of League One Ontario Women's Premier Division. I'll take this brief break in play to remind you actually that League One Ontario is the province's Pro-Am standards-based soccer league. It is sanctioned by FIFA through the Domestic Authority of Canada Soccer and Ontario Soccer, two of our sponsors for today. Founded in 2014, League One entered its 8th season of play in 2022 with 20 teams in its Women's Premier Division, which, as mentioned, is what we are lucky enough to have in front of us here today, and 22 teams in the Men's Premier Division. League One serves as the stepping stone between high-performance youth soccer and the fully professional levels of the game. Its primary focus is the showcase and development of Canada's future stars, and to that end, more than 150 players, male and female, have graduated from League One to professional levels of the game in Canada and across the globe. For more information, please visit league1ontario.com. You can also find League One Ontario on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So we look to get restarted here after that hydration break with Chumba playing that ball in for Fowler to work and twist and turn and gain herself 5 to 10 yards. And a fourth substitution for Guelph Union.
For Guelph Union into the match, number 6, Isabella Villaflor, replaces number 18, Cindy Vanderhoof. The 71st minute.
As Vanderhoof is replaced by Isabella Villaflor. Oh, and again, a very neat ball across, and that one just poked home by Mazur. This, as mentioned, this now is turning into something a little bit perhaps unwarranted, as Dickinson is unfortunately still down after that clash with Mazur. But Pro Stars, their defensive line tiring, their midfield tiring, the space is opening up.
By number 15, Vanessa Mazur.
And Guelph Union seemingly able to pick their way through at will at this point, constantly finding themselves in dangerous positions on those flanks. Able to get behind the line of Pro Stars, the defensive line, which has been dropping deeper and deeper and deeper as the game has progressed. But able to kind of get in between the defensive line and the byline, whip in dangerous crosses, dangerous balls across for on-rushing attackers. As we saw on that goal, we've seen that with previous opportunities. The own goal, indeed, of course, was such a finish. And even in the first goal was not quite as neatly done as this one, as Vanessa Mazur's finish here. But the first goal that Olivia Brown scored was the result of a similar play on the other side. Dickinson still down after that clash with the Guelph Union forward on the goal. This result, if it stands, as it stands, will potentially take Guelph Union. Well, and certainly they'll go up one place, as Unionville felt a defeat earlier today, or yesterday, in fact. And so certainly they'll rise above them in the table, and then they have an opportunity to go to jump up one more place in the table, depending on results later on this afternoon. Depending on how the game goes for the Oakville Blue Devils this evening. A slight note of concern is that, as mentioned, Pro Stars really only came with 2 substitutes, neither of which look to be goalkeepers. So should Dickinson be unable to continue, they would have to potentially put an outfield player in net. That also reduces their ability to introduce fresh legs into their kind of outfield team as well, thus kind of blunting their attack even more. Dickinson is up on her feet, which is good to see. We'll see how this clash hinders her throughout the rest of the game, whether she's able to move freely and unhindered. As Rugoli gets us restarted here for Pro Stars. Van der Laan's ball forward, not really lacking any sort of subtlety, and dealt with quite nicely. And that's Great work from Briscoe to battle and win that ball, and there we see that Dickinson is still sprightly on her feet and able to meet the through ball of Briscoe, who had done terrifically to poke that one through for Clogsworthy. Khan not quite able to keep that one in. Giving up the throw in for Pro Stars in what could potentially be a useful position. Rugoli looking to turn inside, but met by the substitute via floor. And we see now what must be the final substitute for Guelph Union, as Cassandra Briscoe is replaced in the 77th minute by Sierra Palermo. Palermo, along with Christina Alexander, actually the Guelph Union goalkeeper, was one that had previously been spending time with Dickinson. Again, quickly out, able to make sure Mizor can't gain that possession in a dangerous spot. But yeah, Palermo, who alongside with Alexander had been playing with the reserve division team until recently. An opportunity provided to them today by head coach Onkar Dillon to stretch their legs, prove themselves perhaps at a higher level. Hodgson and Alan combining well to provide themselves with the space, or provide Guelph with the space and the time to play out from the back as they look to move through the lines, move through the gears, get this attacking play going once more. Burke with nothing but green space ahead of her, no real challenge. Loops a long ball across that finds all its way to Khan, but Chumba this time is able to nick the ball off Khan's toes. Fowler had done well actually to keep that ball moving for Rugoli, but Rugoli just about missing out in that contest with Hodgson. Able to win the throw in though. Arsenault moving that one on down the line. And again, Rugoli and Hodgson again. Now things getting perhaps a touch testy. This had been a contest throughout the game, but it never really looked to flare into anything too outlandish until that moment.
Yellow card assessed to Pro Stars FC's number 5, Rugoli.
So in the act of winning the free kick, Rugoli has managed to give herself a yellow card, which I'm sure it's likely just a part of the way she plays. And that one just neatly cleared out, allowing Guelph to regain their shape and catch a breath. Via floor, not letting anybody get anywhere, and neatly just moving that ball into space, finding Sauvé. And then Chumba's attempted pass forward for Rugoli, finding it all the way, its way all the way through for Alexander, who gets us moving once more. Burke's ball, Palermo not quite able to turn on it. Alexander not quite able to field that one. An unfortunate, unnecessary mistake, providing Pro Stars with a corner and an opportunity to, mount a comeback here, or certainly get a goal that they would hope would be, the beginning of a resurgence on their behalf. Fowler looking to swing this one in. Oh, and that one is just a dangerous one, just flashing across the plane of the goal, completely missed by everybody. No one on either team able to affect the flight of that ball as it found its way completely, unimpeded, thankfully, on behalf of for Guelph, I'm sure, anyway, but bouncing its way clear. And then actually the ball coming the other way, you'd have to say Morell had an opportunity to really break quickly, but didn't make the most of it. So Pro Stars once again finding themselves with the ball at their feet. Not quite able to settle it down, though. Starcevic looking for Mazur, comes deep to receive it, but the ball just eluding via floor. Now Rugole wants to run at the defense. Evades the physical attentions of two of the players, but the ball that this time just squirreling its way loose to Starcevic. In between her and Alexander, they're able to regain possession. That's a nice ball from Hodgson to move that one up through the lines for Palermo. Now Morell, what can she do? Driving at the fullback. Finds Mazur, who finds Khan, who turns inside very nicely, gets around Chumbur. And a call for a penalty from the Guelph players. Denied by referee O'Hara. He simply wasn't interested as he brings play to a halt as Sultana is down at present. And is asking actually for a substitution. She limps her way clear of the field, and so we do have a couple of substitutions.
Match number 11, Anna Kuyuncic replaces number 18, Celine Sultana.
And is Sultana actually finding herself replaced by Anna Kuyuncic. And indeed, Sarah Ongarato also replaced by the oncoming Emily Tirabassi. We'll see whether the change in personnel requires a change in shape, or whether these players are able to just kind of slot into the situations, the positions and the roles that they're the players that they replaced had been playing. Well, thus far it looks like that might well be the case. Or perhaps a slight shuffle of responsibilities. Burke able to sweep that one up before Rugole could break too far with it after winning a battle. But now Hodgson looking to angle that one over for Mazur to chase, but just cut out by Van der Laan. Fowler does well to charge it down, but no white shirts in pursuit. As I'm sure is not a great deal of surprise in the 84th minute, again on this hot sunny day. And that loose touch by Lang not punished this time. She had enough space and enough time. Oh, a neat touch by Mazur to kill that one dead. Now Villaflor able to just kind of advance and stride forward. Ooh, looking to play that one through for Morell, but the ball a touch heavy. But yeah, Villaflor able to come forward with the ball at her feet, completely uncontested for 15-20 yards, right through the busiest part of the field. Oh, and again, you see the Guelph Union now. The bit between their teeth, their tail in the air. They're kind of they're pushing, they're pressing the fresh legs. Sauvé cuts inside really, really neatly. Looks to play a reverse ball and actually wins a free kick in the act of doing so. And so this is in a pretty dangerous spot now. Sydney van der Hoef, who would ordinarily take their set pieces, has been replaced, but AC Lang now stood over this one. Looking for some movement. We know that Hodgson obviously poses a threat from these set pieces. Morell also not short. As Lang floats that one over towards the back post. Hodgson not giving up on it. Making Tirabassi sweat somewhat a little bit on the, well, as she shepherds and watches that one out, but out it does go for the goal kick. Pearson now with 3 red shirts around her, all of a sudden facing her own net on the edge of her own penalty area. And you can see, this is what I was saying with Guelph Union now having these fresh legs and perhaps smelling blood in the water, if that isn't too grisly a metaphor, that they can see that there are goals in this game for this team now, and they want to keep this pressure up and keep going. Morell looking to get away from Tirabassi, but a sprawling last-ditch challenge actually wins the goal kick, as it is adjudged to have come off the Guelph Union forward. So as we enter into the final stages of this game, good ball forward from Villaflor, straight from the goal kick, actually, and Mazur, what can she do? She looks to turn, but the shot, I think, lacking any sort of real venom or pace or viciousness. Maybe she would have been better served to play in her counterpart, Abby Morell. But I don't think you can begrudge anybody who wanting to take a shot at this stage of the game. Coming into the 88th minute, with 87 minutes gone, just a few minutes left to play. We're in to be seeing how much time we'll have added on. We've had a few injury stoppages, including, of course, for Kyra Dickinson, who took a blow during the act of the 4th Guelph Union goal being conceded. Tirabassi, sneaking that one through the legs of Starcevic, but not quite able to elude the backtracking Abby Morell. Hodgson, very neatly forcing Fowler to overcommit and able to move that ball out for Sauvé. And AC Lang just keeps that one moving for Khan to chase. The ball across, not cut out, finding its way to Mazur, who perhaps was surprised that it made its way past Kozmevsky. I'm sure it's Kozmevsky was as well, but Mazur then taken aback by the ball suddenly being at her feet, lacking the composure to finish from that position. Morell with a neat ball through, but Mazur had gone a touch too early and would have been flagged offside had the play continued. Pro Stars had been testing the Guelph Union back line with these long balls directly down the middle, perhaps hoping for a mistake as Morell goes on a very breezy, weavy run, ending in a shot that perhaps you didn't want to take, but as mentioned, Pro Stars would Van der Laan not quite getting all of that. Pro Stars had even testing the Guelph backline with these straight balls, perhaps hoping for a mistake for Rugole to capitalize on, and in truth there'd been one or two, but on the whole this Guelph Union must really be pleased with how they've acquitted themselves today. They've won this game, and in many areas of the field too. Now this though is Clark Joly not letting Jasmine Burke settle at all for a second. And that kind of that attitude, that that desire to still play on the front foot, even this late into a game that they are 4 goals behind in, must be commended. So, as mentioned, we have 3 minutes of added time, as adjudged by our between our fourth referee Sean McBride and referee O'Hara in the middle. As Viaflor turns, looks up, looks to play a ball in for Mazur, and just about finds its way there. Burke has options. Mazur had been calling for it, but had stopped her run and before attempting to restart it. Burke was maybe just a little bit out of sync there. Now, to my eye, as of course we see that as a 4-0 game in the end for Guelph Union over Pro Stars. I mean, barring any last-minute drama, of course. To my eye, this was really a case of Guelph being able to call upon fresh legs, and as Morell again just is able to just move her way, slashing across the front of the defense. But as referee O'Hara calls this one to a close, as mentioned, a 4-0 win for Guelph Union over Pro Stars. This does tentatively put them in 11th place. And yeah, it really was a story of Guelph being able to bring on fresh legs, Pro Stars wilting in the heat, and Guelph eventually being able to just capitalize on the chances that they were able to make. So, I would say thank you for joining us on behalf of myself and the rest of the broadcast team here at the Alumni Field for this afternoon presentation of League One Ontario Women's Premier Division Soccer. Remember to keep watching the games as and when. We have 2 every week, streaming live on YouTube. Follow League One Ontario on all of our social channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, the usuals. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. And please, we look forward to seeing you soon.
And then they'll do some short ones as you get close to the boat like this, but you know, they're usually not long runs. Oh, nice fish. Ate it pretty deep. That's a good sign. Oh, that came out easy. Good.
So again, we're hunting big fish on Andrews Island, and we're fishing basically about maybe 3.5, 4 feet of water. And when you're fishing in a depth of 3.5, 4 feet of water, you want to go to a bigger fly with leaded eyes, preferably a number 2 fly with a leaded eye, so that the fly is able to sink right down to the fish. So when you're fishing big fish in deep water, you don't want to be casting like small fish in the shallows where you're pushing across them and stripping, no. When you're fishing big fish in deep water, you're sharp shooting. So first of all, you go straight at the fish with a lead eye fly, 4 or 5 feet of water or more, and let it sink without stripping. The fish will see the fly when it's sinking, you'll attack it, and you make that giant long strip. And that's how you fish big fish in deep water. Keep stripping, stop, long strip, got him. Not a huge fish, but it's not huge, but it's a fish.
He was a solo.
Yeah.
Now, we came on this side because we decided we were going to hunt for giants. And, David, I hate to tell you this, but you lied to me. You said that this was a patience game. And you said...
For me.
For you. And you said that, you know, we're going to get shots, a few shots at big fish. Well, we've been here for probably a half an hour. And this is a big one. I'm not sure it's a double digit, but it's a good one.
Anytime a fish is taking you 3 times in the back, and definitely is over 6, 7 pounds.
Yeah.
And more.
So you want to come to Andros Island to catch trophies? They are possible. And bonefish pushing double digits? How do you like that? Absolutely fantastically spectacular.
Big.
Away goes.
Big.
How do you like that? That, my friend, is absolutely incredible. Thank you. Bonefish slime for everyone.
Welcome to the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stalo people. The Stalo are people of the river. I'm so thankful for the courage and resiliency of our ancestors who lived on this land since time immemorial. Each of us have gifts from the Creator, and our Creator has a plan and purpose to be fulfilled in our territory. As we embrace our traditional teachings, we can lead the next generation into the fullness of what our Creator designed. Our shared history reveals a broken relationship, but as all Canadians commit to hear truth, acknowledge injustice, we can learn to walk in our traditional way, Letsamot, with a good heart and a good mind. Then all of our lives will be enriched. Kwasai.
Andre Pale. Be sure to tune into Candy and Commerce Thursdays at 9 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On Diverse and Converse, we want to help you connect, commit, and change.
We'll connect you with leaders from the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities.
We'll show you practical anti-racism steps.
And together, we can change the world.
Our final destination on this outstanding fishing trip is Swains Key Lodge, located on Mangrove Key. The lodge is larger than most, with a number of different options for accommodations. All rooms have ensuite bathrooms, furnished patio, air conditioning, and Wi-Fi access. They have a duplex apartment that can handle larger groups that boasts a comfortable lounge with satellite TV. The bone fishing here is unbelievable. Many double-digit fish are landed in their waters on a regular basis.
Got him.
Come on, fish. Get
Come
out
on,
of
fish.
there. Get out of there.
Go, go. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can get this guy in. What a great fish for the first fish out of Swains Key Lodge. Cannot be beat. Thanks, buddy.
I went on to catch more bonefish that day, many more that could be shown in one episode of television. This has been an incredible trip.
Well, that about does it for this episode of The New Fly Fisher. Thank you for watching. I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody on the island of Andros for making this possible. The fishing has been incredible. The bone fishing is out of this world. For more on our series, check us out at www.thenewflyfisher.com. My name is Mark Melnick. Thanks for watching. Remember, adventure is out there. All you need to do is go and find it. And what better way than to do it with a fly rod in your hand? From all of us at The New Fly Fisher, we'll see you in the backcountry.
The New Fly Fisher is supported by Bahamas Tourism, Orvis Fly Fishing, Adipose Boat Works, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada,
call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience, and with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles.
Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now.
This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that.
He'll be shining snow snakes and mudcats to the end of his days.
Are you curious and creative? Then Mindful Makers is the show for you. Get inspired by fun projects. Tune in to Mindful Makers Mondays at 6 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Weekly in-depth coverage of the most local stories in Stratford, Perth, Brantford, Brant, Guelph, Wellington, and the Waterloo region. Hyperlocal stories that matter to you and your community. All this and more on Your Region This Week. All local, all year round. New episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. right here on Rogers TV.
Life can be stressful. I know that. We're here to help you. Simple, easy recipes, amazing guests. At Home with Chef D, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On March 28, 2021, 104 years after No. 2 Construction Battalion deployed overseas, the Canadian Minister of National Defence announced that Canada would apologize for the treatment that the men in this battalion faced. An apology for racism and discrimination they endured before, during, and long after their service to Canada. This event will be televised on Saturday, July 9th.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Welcome to Money Matters with Mike Braga, the personal finance show that dares to ask those money questions that you've always wanted to. I am your host, Mike Braga. We all know that relationships are difficult, and when we add the concept of money and discussions around money into it, it just becomes doubly so. So today, to help us to get set up for financial success in a relationship, we have the chair of the family law group of Mills & Mills, Leanne Townsend, as our guest today. Leanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Leanne, just so our viewers get to know you a little bit better, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to start talking about money in this particular way?
Well, I spent the first sort of more than half, I guess, of my career as a Crown prosecutor. And I dealt with a lot of domestic violence cases and, would see like domestic violence can entail all types of abuse, including financial abuse. And so that's often a piece of it. And when I left that position, I ended up going into family law. And so for the last 10 or more years of my 10, 12 years of my career, I've focused on family law. And, definitely when people go through a divorce, finances play a big part. And sometimes people's lives are being financially wiped out midlife. But I've also seen, the impact it has on particularly women, because, they still tend to sometimes be a little more in the dark with the family finances. And so, I just see over and over again the importance of understanding money and being comfortable talking about it and learning about it and and investing it.
And you hit on the whole, that D word, divorce. And we know that 40% of marriages in Canada will end up in a divorce, yet we're not really doing those things in order to protect ourselves going into the marriage. So we want to focus the conversation on that. So when you hear that statistic and you hear that, that is the outcome, what advice do you have for those, people getting into a relationship right now, in terms of how do they set themselves up for not only success financially, but if ultimately it winds up in divorce, what do we do?
Well, I think it's very important for couples to feel comfortable talking about money. So before you get married, these should be conversations that you're having with your partner. And there should be a clear understanding of, who pays for what, if you're living together, how, joint accounts, separate accounts. But as part of that as well, I highly recommend to people that they have either a cohabitation agreement if they're living together, or they get a marriage contract if they're planning on getting married. And then that way it sets out, everyone's rights and obligations should the relationship not work out. And you're doing this when you're on amicable terms. You're still in love. You want to be together, and so people are more apt to be reasonable and remove their emotion a little more out of the equation than they do when they're going through divorce and having to deal with a separation agreement or court. So I highly recommend, whatever someone's age is, whatever their financial situation, I think that a marriage contract or a cohabitation agreement is a great preventative tool for people to have.
Well, let's talk about that cohabitation agreement, because we're seeing more and more now people are delaying marriage, or they're entering into different living arrangements, so not necessarily getting married right away. And so, this is an important document that can help to highlight and prevent some of that financial stress later on down the road. So help our viewers understand, what is a cohabitation agreement?
So a cohabitation agreement is something that is drafted for people who are living together, common law, whether they have children or don't have children. And you can pretty much get really creative with it depending on what the parties want. But standard things that people consider in these types of agreements is, if the relationship were to break down, who would be entitled to what? So, if you're living in a home and, one person has paid for it, does the other person have any entitlement to that? What about pensions and investment accounts and things like that? And as well, things like spousal support, because that can be something that common law people are vulnerable to. If you've lived together for 3 years or more, you may have to pay spousal support. So sometimes a waiver of that is incorporated into these agreements as well. But you can pretty much, consider doing a variety of things. The only thing you can't do is opt out of like child support or put in any sort of parenting agreement with respect to children. That's not something you can put in one of these contracts.
I mean, the perception becomes that these cohabitation agreements are for the rich. Like you need to have, significant assets in order to start contemplating that. But more and more, I'm seeing that, some of my friends are contemplating this. So is this just something that's a misconception that we need to clear up? Like, who really should be contemplating this cohabitation agreement?
Well, I think everybody who is in a relationship should be contemplating it. It's not something anymore that's just for the rich. That's kind of, again, as you mentioned, the stereotype, but it really isn't, because, if anything, marriage can have far more of an impact on, kind of the middle class people, or I should say a divorce on the middle class people, because, you've been working together as a couple and suddenly your net worth might be cut in half. And that can really have a huge impact. If you're super wealthy, if you're Jeff Bezos, look at all the money that Mackenzie got, and did it impact him? No. So, although, it could have, if he hadn't had a marriage contract, actually, I don't think he did, but I know Bill Gates did. So certainly, it can play a role for the really wealthy. But as I say, really anybody should have one, because I think it also just gives the person clarity. So they know that, should this relationship not work out, this is how it's going to look. So they can plan, their own financial future as well, knowing that they're not, potentially going to be reliant on the other person. And a lot of times when people enter into these agreements, like, they're not very romantic, and people view it as something that, like, my partner doesn't love me because they want me to sign one of these. And that's not the case at all. And I tell clients that. I mean, I that's something that comes up particularly with people who've been presented, clients who've been presented with one of these, by their partner. And, and I tell them it's not about that. Like, don't view it that way. That's not how it should be viewed.
Well, because I'm thinking about, that mid-30s individual that's going into a long-term relationship, thinking about, moving in together, who has already put down the down payment on a house, so built up some equity, and now somebody's moving into that property. How do we secure that, right? And so this cohabitation agreement sounds like it could be a good way to make sure that what I've built up pre this relationship stays with me.
Exactly. And it's, and it's very important. And I mean, at common law, property rights aren't the same as when you get married. So for example, generally at common law, whoever has title to a property and who paid for it, that kind of rules. But it's still sometimes good to have in a cohabitation agreement, just setting that out, making it clear. But it's when you actually get married where it gets murkier, because property rights do kick in. So you could have a situation where you brought a house into the marriage and it fully paid for by one of the parties and even staying in their name, but the other party could, potentially have an entitlement there.
So Leanne, I want to drill down, and I know that, this is not a substitute for legal advice. And in terms of an opinion, if people have a specific question, they need to seek out independent legal advice. But you hit on something that I want to drill into. So if I have a property that's in my name, and, my partner comes in, lives with me in a common law relationship, and we break out, but the property is in my name, the title and rights to that property remain with me?
Generally speaking, yes, but there are caveats to that. So for example, if your common law partner contributed money to a mortgage or helped with renovations on the property that upgraded the value of the property, or if you have children and your common law partner stayed home and raised the children while you were out in the workforce, then in those types of situations, they can claim something called a constructive trust or an unjust enrichment, and they can make a claim to an entitlement of half or a portion of the property.
Well, because that sounds really complicated, especially when, when you're managing finances, if you're just putting everything into one pot, like, how do you know which portion went to the mortgage versus who's paying for groceries if it's all there? So it becomes really hard to untangle.
And, and that's problematic. So it's much better to have, these rights clearly laid out beforehand. Yeah. So then it doesn't matter if things got commingled a little bit or who paid for what, because they both have signed an agreement that sets out what each one is entitled to.
The other place that I think that this, can really come into play is for individuals who, are widowed. We have many family situations that I've heard of where, the children of a widowed individual is getting in, the widow is getting into another relationship and moving in, and they're concerned about their parents' financial situation. So how can a cohabitation agreement help in that particular situation?
Well, it can also, again, it helps set out the rights and obligations. So if you have the new partner and the widow or widower wants to make sure that they're protecting some of their money or all of their money potentially for their children, that's something that can be set out in the agreement. And then also, obviously, you'd want to coordinate your estate planning and will, as well along those lines. But that is a common situation that comes up, whether someone's a widow or widower, or they're just divorced and, they have a new partner and they have adult children and they want to leave money to their adult children, or they want to make sure that they're, what they've earned for their career and in their life is protected to go to their adult children should something happen to them. And so, a good cohabitation agreement can help with that.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned off the top of the show that I want to delve into a little bit is a marital contract. So what's the difference between this cohabitation agreement and a marital contract?
A marital contract is, as it says, is dealing with people who are actually married, whereas a cohabitation agreement is dealing with people who are not married, who are living common law. And the marriage contract, in my view, is even more important because, as I mentioned a little earlier, when you get married, property rights automatically kick in. And there's certain protections, particularly around the matrimonial home, but also, if you brought, say, a $500,000 investment account into the marriage, well, the law would protect the initial $500,000 if you don't commingle it. The growth on the investment could form part of the marital property, and the other partner could have an entitlement to it. So a marriage contract is really important in terms of protecting property rights because marriage is treated differently.
And you're also creating these contracts at a time when the relationship is good. There isn't the emotional impact about a separation or that angst happening. So you're still in that romantic phase. So having these conversations seems to me would be a lot easier to have.
It's always a difficult conversation because I think anytime a couple is talking about how things might be divided, should they split up? It is a difficult conversation, but it's certainly going to be far easier to have at a time when you are in love and the relationship is good versus down the road when you're breaking up and, emotions of, anger and guilt or, whatever might be kicking in are going to affect decision-making and actions.
Well, and I assume that over your extensive career, you've had to mediate many of these conversations. So what's the key? How do we start that conversation? And what advice do you have for couples to initiate that conversation today?
Well, I do think that couples should be comfortable talking about money beforehand. So I think it's something that, they should have a conversation about, and they should have a conversation that something like a cohabitation agreement or a marriage contract is something that's important to protect both of them. It's not meant to be necessarily a one-sided deal. And so if it's explained in that way, it's there as a preventative thing to protect both of them should the marriage not work out. I think that is a good approach. And if they can have some general conversation about what they're looking for in it before meeting with a lawyer, I think that's helpful too. But I generally find when I'm approached by clients to draft one of these, and it's happening more and more, like I find it's coming up a lot more often. I find that generally they are pretty much, it already has been talked about, and they are more or less in agreement. It's not acrimonious usually the way it is when, you're dealing with a divorce and a separation agreement and that sort of thing. I haven't seen, as you say, a lot of arguing. I have seen a little bit of it, but not nearly as much.
It's at that point where, the relationship is still in a good situation. So you can compartmentalize. Right. So that's why the importance of the conversation. So we have about a few seconds left in this segment, Leanne. Is there a piece of advice or some information that you want to give our viewers?
Whether you're the husband, the wife, it's just important to understand the money in the relationship. So don't just defer because your partner's the one who wants to pay the bills. Make sure you understand the cash inflows or money inflows and outflows into the household, no matter what your role in bill payment is.
Yeah. Now, I know this segment is going to spark a whole lot of conversations at home and many questions are going to come up. So how do people reach you, Leanne, if they wanted to?
They can find me on the Mills and Mills website, which is millsandmills.ca, or I'll have my own website as well, which is leannetownsend.ca.
Our guest has been Leanne Townsend. More with Money Matters after the break.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Weekly in-depth coverage of the most local stories in Stratford Perth, Brantford Brant, Guelph Wellington, and the Waterloo region. Hyperlocal stories that matter to you and your community. All this and more on your region this week. All local, all year round. New episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. right here on Rogers TV.
Life can be stressful. I know that. We're here to help you. Simple, easy recipes, amazing guests. At Home with Chef D, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Money Matters. Prior to the break, we were discussing the importance of that premarital contract, but we know that 40% of marriages won't last the test of time here in Canada. So helping us navigate the options when we want to put an end to the marriage in an amicable way, we have Colette Fortin from Fairway Divorce. Colette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. It's good to be here.
So you're the founder and mediator with Fairway Divorce. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the great work that you're doing here in Waterloo Region?
Well, Fairway Divorce Solutions actually the concept started in Calgary with Karen Stewart, who is the founder and the creator of the model. And I am the owner of the Waterloo Wellington office. Mm-hmm. And the work that we do is to help people work through the details of their separation in a mediation type setting. And we call it divorce mediation. And it's an alternative to the traditional system. And I opened the office, I guess, about 11 years ago. Yeah. And we've probably helped close to 600 couples go through our process.
Wow, that's a significant amount because, I mean, traditionally speaking, when it came to ending a marriage, there was, two conventional approaches that we thought, which is realistically the court setting, that divorce process where we know is a battle, or this other nebulous mediation process, which people really didn't know a whole lot about and until they were in the thick of it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that process first? Like, what is mediation all about?
Well, we're going to be talking about money and kids. That's what needs to be resolved when a separation happens. Yeah. And as you said, traditionally, people only had one option. Well, technically, they had two options, the court system, or let's try and figure it out on our own. And lots of people were shying away from the traditional system because they'd heard horror stories about long drawn out court battles, but it is too technical to do on your own. So divorce mediation is whereby the parties will retain one neutral mediator who is trained in finance and in law, not necessarily lawyer, but certainly has legal training, such that the parties can move through those discussions in a more amicable and compassionate and creative way. And their interests and what's important to them is at the forefront of the process.
Well, you touched on the word amicable. And that word sticks out to me because I keep hearing all of those stories about people that are just, they're fighting, they're hurt, the relationship broke down for whatever reason. And there's all that hurt that needs to be dealt with. And so it gets in the way of dealing with the money and the kid situation. So as a mediator and somebody who deals with this all the time, how do you resolve that? Or how do you help couples get to that point where they can start talking intelligently and less emotionally about their finances?
Well, you're absolutely right. Divorce is emotional. Separation, divorce is emotional. And depending on who is initiating the separation, they're at a different place emotionally. Mm-hmm. So certainly when I'm working with clients, I'm often meeting with them one-on-one, especially when we're talking about money for lots of reasons, but mostly to ensure that they understand and focus on the discussions that need to happen. Because when you let your emotions rule, part of a mediator's role is to coach and help guide people through those discussions. If emotions take over, that's what's going to drive up your legal bills and take the time that, it just doesn't have to be that way.
So help me through that process. So I'm coming in, what's the discussion that you and I are going to have, when we're talking about through this process? What's that initial discussion look like?
So initially, I like to meet with both parties to ensure that they understand what the mediation process looks like, how we're going to guide them through step by step, make sure it's a good fit, and do a proper intake. And then from there, I will be having one-on-one meetings with the clients, particularly when we're dealing with finances. So they're going to disclose their numbers. Let's face it, you can't agree on the house or the cottage or the RSPs or the pension until you have a consolidation of all of that. And this is too technical for people to try to do on their own. So clients are disclosing their numbers, and then we're explaining all that information to them step by step so that they can then make decisions on how they're going to divide the pie. Again, you can't divide the pie until you agree on all the numbers. So bringing consensus on the values. If there needs to be a business valuator brought in because there's a business, then we will coordinate that. But again, there's no sides in mediation. It's a neutral approach so that the parties can look at different options regarding, do we sell? Do I sell it? Keep? Do we keep? Do we sell? Those are big decisions, and they need to understand what those numbers are to be able to then make that informed decision.
So, and as you're going through that, the one thing that's sticking out in my mind is as you're going through that list and you're talking about, are we buying, are we selling? There's a standard of living change that people need to come to terms with when they're going through the separation, through a separation process. Like, you can't necessarily continue the same standard of living separated as you did when you were combining your resources. So how do you help people to come to terms with that realization?
Well, certainly, you're absolutely right. I often use the analogy, if together you earned $150,000 and you had one household to support, or $100,000, and now that same bucket of money is going to have to fund two households.
Right.
Other than the child tax benefit may be changing, where is that going to come from? So as we're working through support discussions, and we'll often help clients with budgets, the numbers sort of reveal themselves and sort of, wow, yeah, things are going to have to change.
Yeah, so we've talked about the numbers piece. Do you also deal with the access and support issues as well through your mediation process?
Yes, absolutely. Fairways process is designed that the clients are moving through in step by step. And once they've worked through the asset scenario and they sort of conceptually know what they see, then we're shifting and talking about child and spousal support. And our clients do attend a legal workshop so they understand the fundamentals of family law. We help them work through those and come to consensus on that. And then and only then do we turn our minds to what's the future plan for the kids. And luckily and very happily, the word custody and access have now been removed from the Divorce Act. So we're really talking about, how are you going to take care of your kids in the future? And what does that look like? And more people are opting for what we call shared parenting. So we're giving them resources and tools on scheduling and how to talk to kids about separation, and really want to build a solid plan for your kids that's going to stick, that's going to carry you forward in the years ahead. So it's really equipped to deal with all the pieces of the separation, except the legal part.
And so who is this process best suited for? Because I mean, this sounds great. And I'm wondering, why doesn't everybody do this?
Well, it certainly is suited for people who want to remain amicable and who feel that they can, communicate and express their wishes and, understand the information. For folks where there's significant power imbalance, there's safety issues, history of violence or alcohol abuse, that sort of thing, this may not be the right process for them.
Or if you're petty like me and you just want to win, right? Like if you're looking for the victory, this may not necessarily be the option for you. Like that may be a court process. But to put it in context, if we're going to court for a divorce, how much is that going to cost me?
Well, lawyers will say if you're disputing issues, you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars, if not $100,000, if you're talking about a significant dispute, if not more. And right now, your next available case conference, a lawyer just told me last week, May.
Wow.
May.
Yeah. And it just drags out the entire process. Because I mean, that's just the first step in the process. Like a typical divorce would last how many years?
Well, when people go through the separation process, really, the divorce is simply the status change, the legal status of marriage. It's an application for a certificate that says I'm no longer legally married. But the real work is figuring out the money and the kids plan. That's the work. So mediation is an ideal process for people who want to remain amicable. They then obtain the legal agreement with lawyers. So our clients are still working with lawyers for the legal agreement, but we are helping them resolve everything and drafting a report that says, here's everything we've agreed to, such that they're minimizing their legal fees and using lawyers strategically when they need them for all of the legal aspect of their separation. But who's picking up Johnny at 5 o'clock? Not effective to have two lawyers discussing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like you're reducing costs and coming up with decisions that are right for your family. So this is a part of the show that we like to get to know our guests a little bit better and allow viewers to get a glimpse into your personal situation, Colette. And we do that by playing a game we call 6 in 60. It's where I ask 6 rapid fire questions and we attempt to answer them in the next 60 seconds. So if you're game, I'd like to get started.
Okay.
Okay. Question number 1, what is the best financial advice you've ever received?
Well, I think it's tied to our topic today is know where you stand, know where your numbers are. So in a relationship, even if your partner takes care of the finances, you should educate yourself so that you know what your assets are, what are you carrying extra debts. So knowing where you stand, hugely important.
Question number 2, what item in your budget do you splurge on?
Oh, that's an easy one. I would have to say personal care, whether it's yoga classes or massage or personal interest. I always say that I can't be my best self if I'm not taking care of myself, whether it's for my clients or my family.
Question number 3, do you brew your coffee at home or pick it up on the way to work?
We brew it at home. And get yourself a good coffee maker that actually grinds the beans fresh and you'll never go back.
Great. Question number 4, do you use a paper budget or a budgeting app?
Well, I'm going to age myself here when it comes to apps. It's not my forte, but I am an Excel spreadsheet kind of person. So I guess it's a little bit of both. I like to see the numbers all together, but I tend to use Excel.
Yeah, and in terms of your spending, do you use plastic always or still stick with cash?
Well, since COVID, I would say the shift to plastic, certainly happened by default, but we tend to use credit. Yeah.
And then finally, when selecting a credit card, do you go for the one with the points or the one with no annual fee?
We go for the travel points because we have family that lives far away, but we always pay off our balances every single month.
So Colette, this has been such an informative segment, and I know there's a lot of people that are wanting to research this process more. So if somebody is in that position where they're looking at ending their relationship, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can search us out at fairwaydivorce.com. That is the website. Fairway has offices across Canada, and so we are the Waterloo Wellington office. Or they can call us at the office. 519-954-6240 is our office number. And we offer a no-cost consultation for the first hour. So happy to meet with people to get a sense of their situation, start to educate them a little bit. We know it's overwhelming. You're not alone. We're here to help you get through this.
Well, that's been another episode of Money Matters. Until next time, I'm your host, Mike Braga.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Welcome to Chamber TV, a community-produced program this spring exploring how business in our community is contributing to improving the prosperity and the quality of life in our region. My name is David Prang, and I serve our community as the Chief Executive Officer and Secretary to the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce, Brantford-Brant. The Chamber acknowledges that a diverse, equitable, and safe community is essential to the economic prosperity and improved quality of life for everyone in our region. We acknowledge that the land that we live and work on is located on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples, and we offer our deepest respect for the long-standing relationships with our local Indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Six Nations of the Grand River. The Chamber has been active in our community since 1866, when industry leaders united to form a focus on the transportation issues of the day, focused around the Grand River. Today, improving transportation in our region remains one of our signature advocacy issues of the Chamber, along with countless other opportunities to improve our community. Chamber TV meets with business leaders, politicians, and community developers to explore how they are meeting the challenges of today's business environment and what they are focused on to improve the quality of life in our region. This week, I am pleased to host our newly elected Member of Provincial Parliament, Will Balma, recently elected to the riding of Brantford-Brant. Welcome, Will.
David, thank you for having me. It's great to be here again.
It's great to have you on as well. I think last time we tried to do this, we were still in a Zoom environment, so face-to-face in studio, no masks is an excellent time.
And maybe we're dating ourselves, but it's so much more comfortable being able to be face-to-face with people.
Absolutely, for sure. So I guess first of all, I think what's most on the minds of business people in our community is the election results. What's your take on that? What does this mean for Ontario? It's a record government for PCs, for the Provincial Conservative Party, of having 83 MPPs elected across the province in all regions, urban and rural. What does that mean for Ontario for the next 4 years?
Well, number one, David, I think it's a really good question, is it means that we have stability in government. And I really appreciate